Charlotte Soccer Show, John Hayes, Danny Brams. Danny, it's a special episode today. We're thrilled to highlight a new soccer club here in the Carolinas. We've talked about this sport growing in this soccer city that is Charlotte. But all of a sudden, this sport is starting to grow across the state as well, right? All the way up into High Point, where Carolina Core is entering its first season in MLS Next Pro. Danny, and that first match is coming up very quickly on Sunday the 17th, St. Patrick's Day showdown against Crown Legacy. Are you excited for that one?
Can't wait, man. Crown Legacy's back. Carolina Core is here. High Point, North Carolina is not that far away. I drive past it a lot whenever when we drive to DC, we drive past High Point. So, I know Charlotte FC has a lot of fans in Greensboro that, might say, hey, maybe I'll just go to the Core game this time instead of make the drive all the way down to Charlotte. And I think they're banking on that. And it's just, there's room for everyone to eat. It's an expansion of soccer. Charlotte is a soccer city, and now North Carolina is a soccer region.
Yes, a soccer state. There's no doubt about that. And our special guest, without further ado, let's bring him in. And it's no big deal to have one of the best defenders in United States men's national team history here with us on the show. He's the sporting director for the Carolina Core. He's Eddie Pope. Eddie, welcome to Charlotte Soccer Show.
Thank you so much for having me, gents.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and congratulations on this new project. I know that you're a North Carolina native. I know that you're a High Point native, so that's really where I wanted to start. How's it feel? It's match week. This new project is finally getting off the ground, and you've got quite the relationship with your local community. What's the process been like?
It's been a lot of fun. I was going to be able to come back home to High Point, North Carolina, where I grew up playing soccer, and just we always had the feeling that soccer in North Carolina has always been a hotbed here. And I think to finally get a team in the Core is a great feeling, not only for me, for the players that are here, front office staff, ownership group, for the fans. We're super excited about what lies ahead.
Eddie, what's the feeling of being able to build something brand new from the ground up? One of the biggest draws for Johnny and I in getting involved with Charlotte FC and decided we wanted to go all the way and create this show involved with it was the fact that it was ground floor, that it was like the first season that we could jump in and be there. And I know that's a special feeling. What's it like to do that in your hometown, your home state? And how do you go, like, how do you not just have a giant smile on your face every day when you go to work? Or maybe you do.
We do. We definitely do. And it's a good feeling. I think to be able to just contribute, even if it's a small contribution to the community that you live in way of providing some form of entertainment, especially to a town like High Point, who, again, of course, is on the up and up, is really satisfying. And then, of course, we're a team throughout the entire Carolina Core. So for me, man, it was an opportunity to give give up, rather, and I think having grown up doing grassroots soccer in High Point, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem, sort of learning the game there and being able to come back and say, hey kids, now when you're out running around and playing, you can kind of look over the hill there and there's a professional club.
Yeah, that's amazing for player pathway, and I think all of these new professional leagues and clubs popping up all over the region is a great thing for kids to kind of look up and see people, and they're I guess what I would call them is somebody that they could look up to, right? And that's what youth sports is all about, is to looking up to people and seeing professional players as people that you look up to.
We saw it. We saw it last year with the Legacy. Like, it was such a kid-friendly atmosphere. Like, I went to a ton of Legacy games, and I was just remarked every time, there's families here. Like the Charlotte FC matches are great, and I'm a hooligan, and I love it, and I love to go be rowdy. But I was really taken aback by like what a family atmosphere was built in the Next Pro level. Are you seeing that? And it kind of extends to even the family of your guys' club as you're building it, the core of the core.
We'd love to have both, right? You have families, you have kids that are out, and then, like you said, you want the quote-unquote hooligans in their section going crazy. Of course, the players love that. But when you have kids that grew up playing youth soccer, it's like the other sports. Like they want to see the end product. They want to see like sort of the gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. They want that professional club that they can look up to. You know, we want kids to be able to come out to watch our training sessions. We want them to come out to watch games, of course. We want them to meet the players. We want them to look up to the players and have them be mentors of some sort. But, you know, the only way that you can do that is to have a professional club. So, like when I say, you know, it really feels like you're adding to and giving back to the community. It really is true.
When you are launching a new club, one thing that you need is a full roster of new players, and the sporting director is directly responsible for making that happen. And those are the shoes that you're standing in right now. So take us through the roster build. What's it been like over the last year?
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. You know, we have a scout, Andy Williams, who played in the World Cup for Jamaica. You know, he's MLS Cup champion. He's been around. We played together at Real Salt Lake towards the end of my career. So I think along with him, we set out to build a roster that where we had some younger guys that we could develop and try to move through the ranks. And then, of course, some older guys could kind of be the backbone and really add some stability to the roster. And then you have some in between. So I think for us, we just kind of felt like we needed to check all the boxes. Like most teams, you want to be strong down the middle, as they say, and I think that we've accomplished that as well. But it was a lot of fun. It was fun having tryouts and opening those tryouts to our community, allowing everyone who felt like they were capable the opportunity to come out and run with the big dog, so to speak. And then obviously the other end of it is bringing in players that we knew about, some who had already been in MLS Next Pro, or some who were at some of the lower divisions in South America and Europe.
So you're an MLS star, you're a U.S. men's national star. How did you transition from the player to the executive? We talked with Darius Barnes last year, who is the president of Crown Legacy, former MLSer who went into the executive path. What was your path into that role?
Yeah, Darius is fantastic. Much more impressive than I am, by the way. He's done a great job with Charlotte. And he said it league, like he couldn't have given us a tougher start, right?
Right. Yeah, game one.
He's been fantastic. For me, once I retired, I first started with MLS Players Union, and so my role there was to help assist in the negotiation of the collective bargaining agreements. And then from there, after about 8 or so years there, I went on to a company called Octagon and became a player agent and helped build that soccer division from the ground up. So I felt like after that, I kind of checked the boxes that made sense for me to kind of move on to become a sporting director. You know, just when you're working for the Players Association, you know, as a director of player relations, you really are working with players on a daily basis and helping them solve their issues and their problems. You're having some input to the collective bargaining agreement and to what players want or need. And as an agent, of course, you're representing players, and you have to go out, scout, recognize talent. So putting those two things together, to me, it felt like a natural transition into becoming a chief sporting officer.
Yeah, it feels like a really nice pathway and a really nice way to kind of build out your full resume, if you will, right? If you think about a pie chart, there's so many different things you can do, including, by the way, starring for the United States men's national team in the World Cup. No big deal. So at this point in your career, you're getting to watch other young players, some young American players as well, come up through the ranks. So that's what I wanted to ask you about specifically, right? When you launch a new club like Carolina Core, and it's a unique club in that it does not have a MLS parent club, if you will. It's a standalone entity. And with that, something that I'm very used to is the idea that when you play for Crown Legacy, you've got a chance to potentially move up to the first team. So how does it work with the Carolina Core when you sign a player and that player is thinking about taking their career to the next level? How do those conversations go down?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the independent teams are that, we're not tied to an MLS club, which means that our players really are available to all MLS clubs. And, they, on a week in and week out, get to play against some new MLS team, right? So obviously this weekend will be Charlotte. So that will be an opportunity for players to showcase themselves against Crown Legacy. The next is Atlanta, and so forth and so on. So I think it's a great platform for players who are in that in-between stage who are looking to further their careers in MLS. And I think we're going to, obviously over the next several years, we'll add in more and more independent teams, so the league will continue to grow, and which will give more and more players those opportunities.
I haven't thought about it that way, to be honest with you, right? Where if you don't have a parent club, if you will, then everybody's your parent club, and
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you might actually have more opportunity to ultimately get a job at the MLS level, because you're right. You're traveling around the country. You're really getting a chance to show your skills across the board, and it's a great answer too, because before the interview, I just thought to myself, I'm not necessarily sure that I understand. And now I'm like, well, I would suggest somebody go maybe have a conversation with Eddie, try to get their young, talented player on core and put him out there in front of a ton of executives.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, the other option is for players that want to go to Europe, or players that maybe want to go play in Mexico, same options. Hopefully this year there may be some competitions where we're playing some Mexican teams. But as you know, MLS Next Pro is on Apple TV. Therefore, now you have, again, just another platform to be able to showcase your talent.
Yeah. Administratively, is it easier for a club that wants to come buy a young player out of Next Pro? Is it easier to come deal with an independent club like the Core than it is to deal with an MLS parent? Do you think that you're more open for business based on your status? And does the different statuses within the league, does it make it kind of hard to work with as more independent clubs come in? I'm just wondering about sort of the difference there and maybe what the future holds for independent versus parent.
I don't know that it's easier or more difficult. I just think it's different. When maybe a club in Europe may say, well, I don't have to go through this layer to get this player. But I mean, we consider ourselves a first team. So I don't know that I find that much different than if someone were to come to Atlanta and say, we're looking at your first team. Maybe it's that they're looking at younger players on our end. And so maybe you're finding someone who's younger, a little more pliable, maybe less expensive, and you're getting that player early before they are on an MLS club or at another club in Europe. So maybe that's a little bit of a difference. But, you still have to come through the front door one way or the other.
Right. You mentioned other competitions, and one of those competitions is the U.S. Open Cup. Things kind of broke your way where the club is launching. It's the inaugural season, and you've got a chance to play in the U.S. Open Cup. You couldn't have timed that any better, Eddie.
Yeah, we're fortunate, right? And that we'll be able to have hopefully more than one game in the US Open Cup. And what a great home for our players to be able to come and play in a competition that's been around a long time, an extremely difficult competition. The players know that, but they're super excited. And it's one right the last year that Messi played in as well. So I just think for a developmental standpoint, it's just fantastic for the independent teams and for MLS Next Pro clubs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. There's obviously a lot of negative energy from a lot of people about sort of the different, the MLS teams that are sending their Next Pro teams instead of their first teams. I wonder your thoughts on that, but really just make the case for why this is a good thing and a chance to shine a light on Next Pro and why people should come out and, if they really love the U.S. Open Cup, then come to these games.
As they say, whether it's FA Cup or Open Cup, everybody deserves a shot, right? And but I do think MLS Next Pro is a developmental league, and I think what better way to help develop players and to put them into an extremely difficult tournament. And again, I know the clubs will be up for it, the players will be up for it, the coaches will be up for it. But I do think that whenever someone passes something up there, someone else has an opportunity to kind of jump in that spot, and that's something that we certainly don't take lightly. We feel very fortunate to be a part of the Open Cup, and again, like I said, our players are super excited about it. I think we have our first round game against Nova FC. So yeah, I mean, and it's also you're not playing the same people over and over again, right? So it's another opportunity to play in front of a different set of eyes, a different set of coaches. So yeah, I'm super happy that we were able to sort of squeak in there.
So we're doing this conversation just about a week ahead of the Carolina Core, its first match on the road against Crown Legacy. Danny and I will be there. We'll be doing a pregame show. Um, uh, Probably around 3 o'clock, 3:30 before this match Sunday at 5 p.m. on St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be a really fun event and a great way to see Carolina Core take the field for the first time here in its home state, which is super exciting. One other thing that, and there you go, game number 2, we're circling that one. And here, this is the nice part, Eddie, about, obviously we consider ourselves Crown Legacy supporters, but we're going to consider ourselves Carolina Core supporters as well, and especially in that second match against Atlanta United too. I mean,
Yeah,
it's nice.
right.
It's a beautiful thing to know that a team from Carolina is going to get a chance to play all these teams that we consider our rivals here in Charlotte, and I think everybody here in the Carolinas can have 2 teams at MLS Next Pro this season. Why not? Right? You said it, Danny. High Point is right up the road here.
It's right up the road. Johnny, what I'm noticing, and Eddie, I want your thoughts on this. I just see road games, road match. It looks like June until you get back to host your first Next Pro game in your home stadium. I'm assuming that's due to some renovations or things like that's what's going on up in High Point.
Yeah, that's correct. We're trying to make some renovations to the stadium. Currently, it's a baseball stadium, and but I should say currently it's a multi-sport stadium, but it has been a baseball stadium for years, and so now we have to do some renovations to make sure that it's soccer ready. And but that means that we're going to have several games on the road up front. So not an easy start for us.
Yeah, what's the mentality like? What do you tell your players?
Well, I mean, we tried to play a lot of we played all of our preseason games on the quote unquote road, except for maybe one, and to just try to prepare them for that. But it's batten down the hatches and get ready. Maybe a little bit difficult at first, but expectations are still high.
So make sure you get out to the Matthews Sportsplex on Sunday to see Carolina Core its debut in MLS Next Pro against Crown Legacy. Going to be a really fun celebration of soccer here in North Carolina on Sunday. So right now, though, Eddie, I've got some questions for you about United States men's national team. Right?
Johnny grew up with watching you, Eddie. I don't know if
Yes.
you knew this, but
Yes.
he's a fan right now. We got to let him fan out for a second.
As somebody that grew up playing stopper/sweeper, there was somebody that I looked up to for sure, and it was a guy named Eddie Pope who did it just about better than everybody else. So, Eddie, what was that like? Kind of just being known as the American that was just exceptional at playing defense and playing in a physical way, and by the way, very good at getting on the end of a set piece to score a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, enjoyed playing for the national team. It's always an honor to be represent your country, and so for me, that always meant a lot. To be called up and to be able to put on quote unquote red, white, and blue and represent your country meant the world to me, and it was certainly something that I didn't take for granted ever. And I heard someone say one time, you always feel like it does feel like you're kind of renting the jersey. But I never really agreed with that. I always felt like, you earned it. It's yours. You're representing your country, the country that you love, and to be able to play, you're really playing, right? It's not something that's necessarily that serious. But I remember the first time playing in the World Cup and hearing the national anthem was tremendous. And you kind of have this flashback to all those years of club soccer and youth soccer and cold mornings and traveling and soccer, with your parents, and then training session at a professional level. It all kind of flashes before you when you kind of, make it get that first World Cup match. So, I mean, for me, it was a great journey, and it's just something that I was so blessed and fortunate to have been able to take part in.
Who's the international opponent that you'll just never forget playing against, that you just like either lives in your head, that you either dominated or you couldn't get over them? Just someone that you'll never forget from that international stage.
Mexico for sure. Love beating Mexico. Any chance on any field, anywhere, in the backyard, in the parking lot, beating Mexico is always the best.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and I think all the American fans would agree with that one for sure. And there's a chance that at some point, maybe this summer, the United States and Mexico could meet in a massive tournament here, Copa America this summer, a World Cup on U.S. soil and Canadian and Mexican soil as well, and in the summer of 26. What's your take on the current state of the United States men's national team? Obviously, a lot of drama came out of the World Cup in Qatar, but the team ended up playing pretty well, I thought. Came up against a tough opponent in the knockout rounds. Do you still follow the team closely? And what's your take on Greg Berhalter and the job that he's doing for the USMNT?
Well, in full disclosure, I played college soccer with Greg Berhalter. So, and when I was there, his wife was there also.
Fantastic.
But, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the team played well, and we came up against an opponent that on the day was just better. Tyler Adams can only run so much, right? So, I was proud of them. I was happy with the performance. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of drama that was there, but I think we've been able to get past that and continue on, continue to move forward. It's been a slow process, right? And I think that's the case for any country. And I think with us, if you start to kind of drill down and look at the youth level, you can still see that there's just so much talent in this country. And as we continue to figure out ways to organize it, our national team is only going to benefit from it in the end.
When it comes to training and development for the national soccer scene in this country, how does Next Pro contribute to that? And the new you guys are building a big, like, multi-million-dollar training facility out there, right? Like, it's all part of a project.
It absolutely is. And, we're going to open that facility next week, March 12th. And we'll have a whole groundbreaking ceremony. But I think one of the things that I felt was important when I came to this club was to build a training facility. And, I think, it's ironic, right? Now most kids that are at that level, they're used to being in multi-million-dollar training facilities, whether it's Charleston facility, whether it's Atlanta. So as independent teams, they're used to seeing that. So we knew that we had to at least be in that ballpark, and our facility is going to be fantastic. But the other thing, though, is that it's also, we feel like it's something that belongs to the community as well. So for a youth player to be able to walk up to the facility, put their hands on it, look inside, meet the players that are there, it just creates this level of, when we always say, oh, well, Europe and South America, they live, eat, and breathe the sport and everything else. That's what they'll be doing. I mean, it'll be all over it. And so, part of our facility will have our youth soccer. They can walk through a little path. They can come up. They can see the pros. They can see the facility. And I just think that really helps to kind of create that soccer in your blood mentality for kids. So yeah, we're super happy about that. I think it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait for the ceremony on the 12th.
So you can look forward to a big week for the Carolina Corps. Open up the training facility on the 12th on Tuesday, and then coming down here to Charlotte to play Crown Legacy on Sunday. The soccer season is underway. It's going to be a fantastic soccer summer here in the Carolinas. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Eddie. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We wish you nothing but the best. Wish you nothing but good luck, and hope to see you soon. And would love to have you back on the Charlotte Soccer Show.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Cheers. Okay, Danny, it's time now to welcome in Carolina Corps head coach. It's Roy Lassiter. You might know the name if you're a soccer fan. If you're a real soccer fan, you definitely know the name. An MLS star, a United States men's national team player as well. Roy, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And don't forget, Johnny, just like Eddie Pope, a North Carolinian.
That's right. And I think that's really fun. The Carolina Corps has clearly placed an emphasis on building this organization around people who have built roots in the North Carolina community. And I find that to be super exciting. So Roy, it's the week of the match. This club is about to kick off, right? We can get into that and ultimately discuss the match against Crown Legacy on Sunday. But First, I want to ask you, how did this opportunity come up, and how have you found yourself at this MLS Next Pro level, and how excited are you to kick things off as the manager here in 2024 for the inaugural season?
Well, first of all, again, thanks for having me. And again, very, very excited for this opportunity. Speaking with Eddie had given me a call, and we had been talking, and Eddie and I talked even before he got the opportunity, to come in as the general manager of the club. And speaking with him and I were just talking over, my ideas, how I coach, who I was coaching at that time, which was with the Houston Dynamo, actually was with the first team, and then with the MLS Next Pro team, and then with the U20 team. And so just letting Eddie know my ideas and things of that nature. But he had come to me and asked if I was interested. And I wanted to hear everything that was involved with Carolina Core. It didn't even have his name at the time. There was no logo at the time either. So we were just talking, and Eddie was letting me know the plan. I wanted to know the plan. As we got further into it, I wanted to know who was leading it, who was the ownership group, what were their interests, why were they interested, what was their vision. And so I wanted to know all of that before I committed to Eddie, because it was with Eddie, because that's who I've known. He's been my roommate for 5 years with national team and 3 years with DC United. So I know him. And I think when you have trust in a person, I think then you can have trust in, the institution or the organization or the company. I think because people run the organization, people run the companies. Mm-hmm. And so when you have that type of trust, then, so I can't say I trusted in, the vision of things and all that kind of stuff. I just trusted, okay, Eddie, you here and you're trying to make a statement, and it's time for me to make my next move as a coach on the professional scene. And I'm all ears. And then once I got around the ownership group, I really liked them. I really liked their interest. They were for people. They were for providing opportunity for people. And so I liked them all when I met them. And so it almost was instant. So I knew I made up my mind at that point.
Roy, you'd been down in Houston, right? And when you got the call, I almost feel like I would have wanted to just come to North Carolina over living in Houston, just regardless, like whatever the job is, just get me out of there. But I'm maybe a little biased because I hail from Austin and DFW area. But regardless of that, you didn't even have a team name when you took the job, but the team name is so fitting, Core, and that core of you guys being teammates, you and Eddie, you mentioned that, you referenced that. The fact that you went to NC State, Eddie went to North Carolina, you guys have roots here. Eddie's from High Point. Like, Core is such a fitting name. How did you guys come up with that, and how does it define the vision of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think another thing that I was really excited about is that Eddie and I were involved in everything. We were involved in the development of our training grounds, the building, where it needs to go, offices, where it needs to go, media room, where it needs to go, training room, where it needs to go, how the layout needs to look, what position the field needs to be, just everything. We were involved in, how I wouldn't per se say how our logo looks, but, the club really looked at us and said, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? I have to be honest, I wasn't all over it at the very beginning, but looking at it and looking at how unique it is, and it can pertain to all sorts of things. You notice it doesn't have a soccer ball on it. And so, you could use it for the normal common outdoors person can wear it and use it, and it can represent a soccer organization all at the same time. So I thought that was so unique in that, and so fitting that the name Core, that had to wear on me just a bit too as well. I'm used to all these soccer names and all those kind of things. So that wore me, but it started to make a whole lot of sense. And I thought, I look back at it now, it's so ingenious the logo and everything. It really is, with all of its colors. So now the team can use an array of different colors in their uniforms and how we look and how we sell merchandise and products. So it's really an awesome thing, how the core has come about and now how it is growing and affecting the community here in High Point.
I like that fox on the logo.
Me too.
It looks slick.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. The logo's awesome. I'm gonna have to get some merch at some point and rock it down here in Charlotte. So one thing that we asked Eddie about was his roster build, right? It's a startup franchise. It's a new club. You've got to go out there and get players. I'm sure that you were involved with him as well, and the head scout too. But you've got these players now in your camp, right? And you're the one responsible for having the whistle in your hand and getting tactics drawn up on the board and getting ready for the match against Crown Legacy on Sunday, the first ever match in Carolina core history. What's it been like working with this group of players and preparing for the start to the season, which is a difficult one considering there's a lot of road matches coming up to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there was so much interest from the players to be part of the Carolina core. And I have to contribute that to not only myself, but the staff that I have with me. You have Amado Guevara, you have Andy Williams, you have Donovan Ricketts, you have Eddie Pope himself, and now we have JC Martinez that has come from Houston Dynamo as well. And so all of us play an intricate part in bringing players in. Yes, I made the decision on every last player. And so, yes, I have several of the players that come from the Dynamo system, which I thank them a great deal because they actually helped me with some players that maybe, and that's a whole different story, how the MLS looks at players and decide on players from how an independent organization would look at it. But I have my hands on all of it, not only looking at players' highlights, but also going back and looking through Wisecat and looking at players in their games and looking at them, 2 or 3 games and seeing their temperament, seeing their first touch, seeing their decision making, seeing what they do off the ball, seeing their attitudes toward their teammates when they're even given instructions, just all of those things, seeing their attitude when they have the ball. And so just looking at all of those and knowing what I wanted and working through the spine first and then branching out for the rest of the group, I just knew it. I just knew what I wanted my players to look like because I know the system and style, how I want to play. And if I'm getting players just because I think they're good, that's not good enough. It needs to be exactly what I'm looking for, how I can continue to develop the player as well. So I know for sure I'm not looking for full season players. As we know, there's players in this world that have been picked on a team or been on a team and they blossom later and now they're the best players in the world. So just recognizing talent, knowing what I can build, seeing the attitude of the player and the character of the player and the personality of the player and seeing how that fits into what I'm building here, that all falls into place.
So what were you looking for? What is your style? How are Carolina core going to go out there? You were a prolific goal scorer in MLS, Roy. I mean, everybody just would recognize the name and think, man, they associate your name with goals being scored. You held the record in MLS for 20 years for the most goals in the season before some guy came and broke it. We don't need to talk about him. But what do we expect to see from Carolina core when you roll out the ball on Sunday against the Legacy?
Well, believe it or not, I'm a counter-preventive coach. I like attacking. I like attacking. I like scoring. I like bringing it to the opposition. I really do.
I believe it. I believe it, Roy.
I like players not being afraid and being shy to showcase their talents, but also recognizing the system by which they play in and helping our players be a little bit more mature, letting them know that their talents don't have to show all the time. They can be simple and then find a time to bring out their talents and bring out their skills and bring out their personalities. And, some players, when they're immature, they want to bring it out all the time. And a lot of times it's the wrong time. And then that causes other problems within the team and breakdowns within the team and counterattacks within the team. So I will take a 1-0 better than a 2-1 because, I like defensively being very good and very structured and very sound and playing intelligently. I always look for players that were good on the ball, good decision making, players that were comfortable with other players around them, players that knew what they had and used their attributes in those moments. So it couldn't just be a normal person. And that's how tryouts are too. You can't go to a trial and just try to blend in and just try to not make mistakes and try. I'm going to take the guy that makes the mistake and tries it again and again. Mm-hmm. And then that third one, he puts it in the back of the net. Or that third one, he makes a great tackle. Or that third one, he steals the ball and then knows how to connect a pass. I'm going to probably take that player because that player kept on going. It persevered. It worked through things and came out the other side of it, and not, wanted to shut down just because they made a mistake, or because they missed a goal, or because they missed a pass, or they were in the wrong spot. So those are the type of personalities I really look for in a player. I know they're going to make mistakes. I know that. I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to give them the goods, and then hope that they can understand it and get it and execute it. And the ones that really can execute it the most and associate well with each other the most is usually the players that are going to be on the field the most.
It's a great perspective for sure, especially from a manager and from somebody that's been on the pitch at a very high level as well, right? You need to feel that freedom in order to make a mistake and not be scared that your manager is going to rip you out of the game the second that you make a mistake. You need that confidence to be able to get back on the ball and go at it again. It's amazing. It's amazing to hear you say it.
And the thing is, these guys are already coming in with a massive amount of pressure. Why? Because they're looking in the eyes of an Eddie Pope. They're looking in the eyes of an Andy Williams. They're looking in the eyes of Amada Guevaras. They're looking in the eyes of Donovan Ricketts. They're looking in my eyes. So they're already coming with the level is high already, right? The expectations are high already. So we have to really say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Here, I'm teaching you this. I'm going to break it down with you. We do functional training where we spend a day working at players working in their field defensively, coming out the back. How do we do that? How is our movement? How is our pace of the ball? Where should we be relative to where the ball is now? And then the midfields working with Amada Guevara and Andy Williams in their touches and their movement off the ball, and then working with me on their finishing. How do we finish? How many touches do we get? How do we open up? When's the timing of our runs? When do we know the difference between placing the ball and really striking the ball for power? So all of those things they're getting on a weekly basis, because I found that players love to spend extra time doing extra things, trying to get a little bit better. So I go, okay, because there's a day that you need to bring it down a little bit in training and not be so intense. So I picked that day to hone in on their development, because really at the end of the day, MLS Next Pro is all about development and getting to that next level. And so if we spend time training, and trying to work on everybody's craft all at the same time, then we fail to break it down and work on their individual group type training, which is really what they need.
Roy, what drove you to get I can feel your passion for development, and you've been working with young players your whole coaching career. You also, when I look at your coaching record, I notice the one thing I don't see is a lot of losses. You like to win games as a manager, for sure. I can see that. I think you lost one game in 2 or 3 years with the Houston Dynamo under 20s. And I just wonder, being a great player, how did that drive you to want to become a great coach like this?
Yeah, I think it was just really my position. And if I didn't read the game well, because obviously the striker doesn't have the ball much. So it's all about movement off the ball. And if I didn't read the game well, because I played with some sensational midfielders, case in point, Carlos Epibe Valderrama, Marco Antonio Echeverri. I mean, these guys were, I played with Preki. Preki's one of the best in the United States. So I played with these Mo Johnson. I played with some of these guys that are very, very high quality players. And if I didn't read the game, if I didn't study the game, if I didn't study my movement and work on being in the right spot at the right time, I never would have scored as many goals as I did. I just had that desire. And so I knew, being a student of the game, especially with the last 10 years of my career, I knew kind of I wanted to be around soccer. I knew what it should look like, so to speak. And now going through my education and going through your licenses and just having plain experience is what was going to help the youth player. And I always felt if you can help a youth player and develop them and they make it to that next level, then you probably could do that with the professional pros, especially if you've been in that environment. I got a player now that I had at U11. You know, he was my player at 11, 10 years old, 11. You know, and I saw him. He was on the second team. I brought him to my team, which we were academy team back in the day. We were academy. I brought him to my team, and sure enough, he walks in my door, and I was his coach at 11 years old.
That's amazing, and I think just a testament to, like Danny said, your interest in building a career. You know what it took, right? You can look in the mirror and say, I live this. I know what it takes, and you can pass that knowledge along. And I think that's a tremendous asset for players that are currently on the squad, but for the youth and players who are coming up through the system here in the Carolinas, with Carolina Core now being an option for a professional pathway. So, you know, for me, you talk about finishing, right? And we mentioned your career in MLS, you're an MLS Cup champion. I think what's really fun is when you look at some statistics and you see 36 goals and 55 appearances with DC United. It's like, is that a typo?
And that's when DC United was good. That's way back in the day.
Yeah. So you played in MLS, right? I think this league right now is going through a bit of a boom stage in the country, right? And there's certain things that can contribute to that, specifically MLS Season Pass. You've got Apple TV being interested in the league, now showing MLS Next Pro games as well. It's just so readily available, the product is. How is this league different today than it was when you were bagging all those goals back playing with DC United?
Totally different. Totally different, man. I mean, I look at these kids that I have on my team and that are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And I go, man, if I only had it like that when I was growing up, I would have been much better.
This only had a multi-million-dollar training facility.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm around ex-professional players that are teaching me the game, and they've been there and done that, and everything that these players say to me is yes, sir, and absolutely, and there's no question about it. There's no hand raised. There's no, coach, what are you talking about? There's none of that. Zero. And so they are all ears and all ready to do what we're asking them to do for their benefit, right? Everything is all obviously for their benefit. And the league then is much more dynamic. It's less dynamic then, much more dynamic now. Younger players coming through. And I think that's just contributing to, it's better coaching at the youth level, or younger players getting more of their opportunity now. Also, MLS Next Pro, MLS Next Pro, MLS. So I look at it.
Generation Adidas.
Yeah, Generation Adidas. I look at it as being bigger. I look at it from a bigger scope. Like, I want to help American players be part of this national team and let our country be very good and dominant in the future. So this is where they're going to get their players from, right here. This is what's going to happen. And so I look at it from that perspective, that our country is going to get better. I look at it from a perspective where MLS is going to get better, and we're already growing as a league. Now look at what type of players that we're getting in this country, not the ones that have really played the majority of their careers somewhere else, and now their tail end of the career. Now they come to the U.S. Where the game is a little bit easier, the fan base are a little bit tolerable, and so now we're getting young, seasoned, right in prime type players, and then we're getting Astros, right? We're getting the stars of the world. We're getting the best of the best. Case in point, Messi. We're getting those type of players now. So that's only going to open the door to many of them, and that's already started here in Major League Soccer.
I appreciate that perspective, and Danny, I'll let you jump in here. But one thing I wanted to say was just there was a point in time, right, where you would see an 18-year-old player who has a bright future, and you realize that, okay, they're going to look overseas, they're going to try to find a club, and that's the pathway potentially for a player who is young and wants to play at the highest level. Now, when I see an 18 or 19-year-old go play in a lower tier league in Europe, I ask myself, who's advising that person right now? You just stay here stateside. There's so many opportunities now for players to grow. And to your point, I think that makes a country like ours proud when an American player wants to stay home and build his or her career that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that anymore. And I have to keep myself, because I'm a winner. I want to win everything. Even in my training sessions, they start out with competition. I mean, they start out even in the activation, after warm up and into activation, it already starts with competition. So it is managed by myself and the rest of the staff, but we are competing right away. And so I have to really manage myself in terms of remembering that it's a developmental league. And I have to have a little bit more patience with the players, a little bit more patience in their development. I got to remember that I picked them, so I must provide the best information possible for them, putting them in the best position for them, so that they can grow, so that they can move on. All these players know when I first talked to them to come to Carolina Core, or we were talking with the players, my conversation with them is, I don't want you to grow any kind of roots here. I don't want you to have any kind of long-term plans here. My thing is to move you along. It's move you to that next level and get you there as quick as possible. But you need to be ready first. It's not a crash and burn. It is learning, developing, growing, so you can move on to that next level. So when I gave them that kind of talk to them, it was done. It was absolutely done.
Yeah, it's the old Bill Parcells analogy of, if you're going to make the meal, you want to buy the groceries. So you got to do that. Is what it sounds like in this case.
Absolutely.
And so you can't complain. I want to talk, though. I mean, obviously, development is the key. Development's what it's all about. But you do have a goal of winning some games here. And one of the biggest challenges of that is obviously going to be the fact that you start everything on the road and stay on the road for a while because of the stadium renovations that we talked with Mr. Pope about. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean to you, just knowing that you got 3 months of nothing but road games? I know you are hosting one of the next the Open Cup games at UNC Greensboro, but you won't really have your home stadium in effect till June. How's that challenge, and how do you turn it into an opportunity?
Yeah, as soon as I figured that out, myself and the staff figured that our first 9 games are on the road basically in the season. My preseason was going to match it. I have 7 preseason games. They were all on the road. The only thing close to here was High Point. We had one game that was a practice game that was we can call it a game or not, but that was on our training field.
Call it whatever we want. Yeah.
Before the High Point game. Other than that, every game was on the road. Every game, whether we're traveling 3 hours or we're traveling 4 hours, we are going to learn to be road warriors. We're going to learn to get on that bus. We're going to learn to travel. We're going to learn to eat together on the road. We're going to learn to prepare ourselves. We're going to learn to pack our backpacks and roller bags and get off the bus or the plane and prepare ourselves for a match. And, a lot of these guys, well, basically all of them, they all live together. Thankfully, the club saw that there was a need for our players in terms of housing. And I think that's been a great blessing in itself as well. Though the units are small, it's all renovated by our ownership group who again, cares a lot about our players. And I think that's just been a huge blessing because they like being around each other all the time. They like it. They're always around each other. They live with each other. And so, it has helped them develop as players and like one another, even off the field. So it's not like come to practice and you go home and you don't see them until the next day. Those guys come to practice, go home and see them again. So that's been really, really good. So we have learned to be dog fighters on the road, just fight on the road. I wanted to battle against USL teams, USL 1 teams, all kind of teams. I wanted to battle. I want to battle against college teams that are seasoned in themselves. These college teams already have been together for a long time. They know their system. They are physical as well because some of them play 1, 2, 3, 4 years up, and they're a little bit older than some of our players. And so we got to learn to battle. And it's a battle game in college. The college is a battle game. More than a technical game, it's a battle game. And so my players need to learn how to battle. And that's what it's all about. Training is a battle already, but eventually you get used to your battle in training. You get used to your teammate. You know what he's going to do and what he's not going to do. We're in a game, in a foreign game, you don't know what that player is going to do. So the battle is on. And so I wanted to teach my players to battle now that it's not going to be anything different when the season starts. Hey, we've traveled, we've played on the road, we know how to play on the road, we know how to get here, we know how to block out what we need to block out and get here and do what we need to do. So that's why, playing against Charlotte Independence, not easy. Playing against South Carolina, not easy. Playing against High Point, not easy. Playing against Wilmington, not easy. So playing against these very difficult teams on the road and these difficult universities, Elon on the road, they were all difficult matches to play.
Well, next up, it's Crown Legacy on Sunday at the Matthews Sportsplex. We'll be there. It's Carolina Core at Crown Legacy Sunday. It's a 5 p.m. kick on St. Patrick's Day. I think it's going to be a rowdy crowd, too, on St. Patty's Day on a Sunday. A great way to kick off the inaugural season for the Carolina Core. Roy, we can't thank you enough for taking some time, almost a half an hour here to chat about the Carolina Core. We really appreciate it. We wish you nothing but the best and good luck on Sunday. It would be quite the story in the first game if you came down here to Charlotte and got the W against Crown Legacy and made a big statement to start the season. I wish you nothing but the best.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, and I'll be coming to win and coming to give it everything we got. Crown Legacy, again, is a very, very good team. They were very good last year. I saw them play. I've seen them play. And they're very technical. They got a good coaching staff. They got a good organization. And so, yes, we will prepare. We will have to be prepared for a very, very solid match there.
For what it's worth, Danny and we have called this one kind of like a friendly derby to kick off the season. But that second match against Atlanta United too, we're certainly Carolina Core supporters for that match, and
Awesome.
will continue to be as the season rolls along. So thanks again so much for your time, and hope to see you soon.
You got it. Thank you, guys.